Hello, everyone. This is Lisa. Listen with the blog Are You My Cousin? If you are listening to this on YouTube, you have found the replay of a Facebook Live we recently had, and we were talking about identifying old family photographs. So get comfortable and let's talk about finding out who is in that old family photo that you have. Hey everyone, it's Lisa with the blog Are You My Cousin? You can find that over at lisalisten.com, and I want to welcome you to our weekly Thursday Facebook Live. So I'm excited to be talking to you about one of my favorite topics, which happens to be old family photos. So we're going to jump into that in just a bit on that, but I want to welcome you all here. If it's your first time, welcome. If you're just coming in, I'd love it if somebody could give me a thumbs up or a hello or something just to let me know that you're seeing everything and hearing everything okay. That helps me know what's going on. Feel free to leave a comment, ask a question as we go through our time together. I will absolutely monitor those questions and try to get everything answered the best I can. Sometimes if I don't answer your question, sometimes it drops down in the scroll bar that I see from my end of things. So just if I miss your question or don't answer it right away, go ahead and just retype it, and that will pop it right back up to the top of the queue, and I'll be able to see it. So feel free to do that. I'd love to do that. All right, guys, I am talking to you from North Carolina, where it is a very sunny, a very warm, and a humid day outside, but that's okay because that's just what it's like around here in the summer, which means I actually think it's a great time to do genealogy because when it's too hot to be outside, I can look for ancestors inside at my computer. So let's get talking though today about one of my favorite topics. And I think it's actually probably one of yours too. I actually get a lot of readers who are interested in old family photos. If you haven't read me for very long on the blog, or if you have known me, I actually have a large collection of family photographs, because what happened was once I started saying, yes, I'm researching the family history, and I started interviewing people in the family, both, kind of close in relation as well as those distant relations, people started cleaning out their closets. And literally one Thanksgiving, I showed up and my aunt, and I'm so ever so grateful for her. She, in her trunk, had 6 boxes of photographs and letters and family keepsakes that had been in the family that had been come from a cleaned out relative's house. And all of that came home with me, and I've been slowly working through it. And my goal is to get every single one of those photographs identified. And I'm making progress, guys. I really am. And so I know that I'll get it done eventually. Some of them aren't sure are actually related to me, but that's okay. But I want to share with you today how I go about really trying to work with a photograph and to see who is in that photograph, if I can determine who is in that photograph. Sometimes it's just as important if I don't know who's in the photograph, but it is important to determine who it is not, or who is not in that photograph. So that's a biggie and can be just as helpful as knowing who it is. So let's get started. Now, I'm going to actually put a link in the post for you. Let's see if I've got it real quick. Let me grab it real quick, which is this week's post. This is actually a post that I redid, guys. So if you've been on the blog before, you've probably seen it. But it is about 2.5 times longer and more in depth than it was the first time around. So I would encourage you to hop over there and take a look. But I have, I just popped it in the comments. I think there it goes. It just showed up. So this is the post that I'm referring to, that you can refer back to after today's Facebook Live to see that. And I would encourage you to do so. So essentially what happens is, sometimes we get those photographs that we don't know who they are, but we don't want to throw them away. And oftentimes what happens is family members will give me photographs or send them to me literally in pieces through snail mail. And they'll say, I know that this photograph is important to the family. I know that it's somebody in the family, but I simply don't know who it is. And I don't really want to keep it anymore. So I'm like, send them on. I'll take them. I'll take those photographs. So that's exactly what happens with some of these. And this particular photograph in the blog post that I used this week came to me in one of those large many boxes that I had received of photographs from my aunt. And the thing was, though, that the photographs were from multiple sides of the family. So it was a little, wasn't really sure who I was going to discover in that photograph. But one of the most important things for you as a researcher and understanding and starting that identification process is to really understand and know the history of that photograph, or what might be called the provenance. Don't know if I said that right. Provenance of a photograph. In other words, how did you get that photograph? How did it come into your hands? So for instance, and I want to share my screen real quick because I want to show you the photograph that I am talking about because it's one of my favorites. There it is. Okay, so this ultimately turned out to be, oops, sorry about that. I'm not sure what that is. Ultimately turned out to be Will and Clara Haley. She was Clara Holt, and this is Will, and they are my great-great-grandparents. But when it came to me, as you see this photograph, it came to me unlabeled. I had no idea who this couple was, and you can kind of tell the way I had to crop, and I scanned it, and this was the best scan I could get on my personal printer, and you can tell. I mean, it was it actually was kind of, it's warped, so it's rolled a little bit, so it's not completely flat. So my scanning is a little off up there, but this is the couple. Just a really striking couple. He's, very handsome man, and she's standing beside him, and I didn't know. Honest, guys, I knew nothing about older photographs. All right, let me get back here. Back to you. So that's who I was looking for and trying to figure out. This came in a box, and in that box were photographs from a couple different sides of the family. My aunt is the one who brought it to me, so I knew that this was on my father's side of the family, the paternal side of my family. So right away, that's very important to know just which side of the family that you're looking at. So in this case, I knew that this was on my father's side of the family, so I did not need to worry about or look at my mother's side of the family. I could literally ignore that half of the family tree because I knew the photograph was not on that side of the tree. Okay, so right away, I'm 50% in. Phew, got it. That was good. But I needed to dig a little deeper. And so I was told the box had come from an elderly aunt's house that had been cleaned out. I thought, okay, that helps because I knew that aunt, and she was my Aunt Elma. My Aunt Elton. And I knew that photograph would have been on my grandmother's side of the family. So it was my father's mother's side of the family. I'm like, great. That means I don't need to look at my father's side of the family. I was narrowing it down. I was like, yes, I know this was on my father's side of the family. I know it was on his mother's side of the family. So I can start to kind of narrow down the folks on that tree. So again, I've narrowed down my tree. I'm like, yes, I know, but I still didn't know. This could have been Haley's. It could have been on the Carr side of the family, or it could have been one of, even a further generation back. And then I would have had more names to look at. But I started to suspect, maybe this was a Haley on the Haley side of the family or on the Carr side of the family. Wasn't 100% sure, but I'd really gone about as far back as I could at this point. Nobody in the family knew who this was. And that's crucial, guys. So not only do you want to know the history and how you got that photograph, get as many eyes on that photograph as you possibly can. Scan it, put it on your Facebook page, send it out to your relatives, send it into genealogy groups, get eyes on that photograph to see if somebody knows who it is. But I didn't have that. I couldn't find anybody. Nobody knew for sure about that photograph. Ironically, months after I actually went through this whole process and eventually did figure out who they were, I did find a really distant cousin who said, oh yes, that's Will and Clara. I'm like, where were you months ago before I did all this? That was all right. I learned a lot, and I'm really thankful that I did. So once you've kind of figured out to the best of your ability how you got that photograph, what is the history of that photograph, then dig into, you want to know kind of the date. You want to kind of get a time period for when that photograph would have been taken. Because if you know when the photograph was taken, or the date, even if it's a time period of years, then you know who it potentially could be and who it potentially would not be. And so in this case, one of the things that you want to do is look at what type of photograph it is. And this was a heavier one. It's kind of thick, a little cardboard, heavy cardboard that it was. And so I knew pretty much right away that I was looking at a cabinet card. Now, there are a number of different types of photographs, and let me share my screen with you one more time. I'm going to take you back to my computer screen, and I want to show you this particular post over on the website about how to identify 5 types of old photographs. Now, there are different photographs, as you know, photography developed over the years, that if you know what type of photograph it is, then you can guess the time period or estimate the time period a photograph was made. So you have the daguerreotype. I'm not going to read all this, guys. You guys can go back and look at this later. Oops, where'd it go? The ambrotypes. I'm sorry, my screen's scrolling a little slow today, guys. Sorry about that. 10 types. There was a very specific time period for the 10 types, but they were kind of done by the 1890s. This was not a 10 type. The carte de visite, kind of similar to the cabinet card as far as feel and look, but it's generally a smaller one and a little bit earlier. And the cabinet card. And the cabinet cards, this one, I did it based on size, based on description, and I knew that if this was a cabinet card, I could at least narrow down from 1860 to 1890s. And they were adults, so I had I was kind of guessing they were in their 20s maybe for that photograph. So I kind of had a general age. I knew a general time period. The thing with the carte de visite, the cabinet cards, is that they were actually, while they were started in 1860s and went up through the 1890s, they were the most popular around in the 1880s. I'm like, okay, that works. 1880s. That gives me a place to start. Because when I went back and looked at this photograph, let me go back to their photograph, and went back to I started looking at their clothing styles and trying to figure out, okay, can I date them? Can I get a general sense of idea of their age or the time period based on their clothes? And in this case, the 1880s fit this couple very well. So I was like, yes, that's good. Cabinet card indicates that would have been an appropriate time period. The clothing helped me narrow down that time period. The 1880s, very consistent. Then I really wanted to see what other clues could I pull out of this photograph. Now, this was something that Maureen Taylor actually shared with us in an earlier podcast we had done, or an earlier Facebook Live earlier this spring when we did one together. I thought this was absolutely fascinating, is that poses can absolutely give you some clues about who the couple is or what the occasion might have been for a photograph to have been taken, or even a potential relationship between the people in the photograph. So in this case, we have the man and the woman. She's standing and he's sitting, and she's got her hand kind of over his shoulder, fairly prominently displayed. Now, that made me wonder, this was a very common pose for a wedding photo, for an engagement or a wedding photo. Granted, it may not have been taken the day of the wedding or the day of the engagement, but around that time period. And it was often done to showcase if there was a ring perhaps on the finger. Now for her, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit on that for you guys. And again, so when I zoomed in on her hand, I actually realized I actually don't think she has a ring on that hand, to the best when I ran this through my Restore editing program. In fact, that's an aside. I actually used VividPix when I scanned the photo, I then used the VividPix Restore program to bring this a little more detail and to clean it up and to make it easier to see the actual details. In fact, you can see the details of his buttons, which is amazing. But anyway, back to her pose. So she's not wearing a ring. I don't believe he is either. But I got to think, it could still be a wedding photo. In the back of my head, I was thinking, now my ancestors that I researched, they were from rural Virginia. They did not have a lot of money. They were not people of means. And so, honestly, I don't know if she ever had my great-great-grandmother ever had a ring in her married life. So I thought, okay, the pose is there, the ring is not. I'm not going to hold real tight to that theory, but I'm going to keep it in the back of my mind anyway. All right. So let me get back to where I was. Hang on one second. Let me get out of this. And let me get back to where I can see you guys. Okay, I'm back, guys. Good to see. So at this point, I had kind of narrowed this down. I'm thinking maybe a wedding. It's a young couple together. 1880s style. The clothing style was good. So I decided it was time to turn to my family tree. So that's exactly what I did, guys. I went into the family tree, and I knew that I was looking probably at either the Haley or the Carr family. So I started with the Haley family, mainly because I knew a little bit more about them than I did the Carr family, and started going through my tree to see if I could find anybody in that tree who might have been married in the 1880s, maybe late 1870s, maybe up to 1890. Let me just, could I find anybody who fit the bill? And I actually got fairly fortunate in that, guys. There was only one couple, and that was Claire Holt and Will Haley. And so as I started piecing together, I was like, okay, that's great. I started comparing that photo to other known descendants of Will and Claire Haley. And I'm like, yeah, I can see a family resemblance there. I can see something there. So I felt very confident based on what I was seeing that this was Will and Claire Haley, that it was likely taking around their engagement or their wedding. I wasn't 100% sure on that, but I thought maybe it was. And so I was very confident and said, okay, this is who I've got. Perfect. And then, as like I said, months later, somebody actually saw that. I met some distant cousins, quite distant to me, and I asked, and I said, well, do you happen to recognize this picture? And they said, absolutely. That's Will and Claire. So I had it identify. But those steps, guys, are the same regardless of how old that photograph that you have in your collection could be. It's going to be the same. You want to know that history, know how you had it, know how you got to have it, and know, if you can, who had it before you and who had it before them. So you can kind of narrow down the side of the family that you're looking for. You want to date it by understanding what type of photograph it is, as well. So looking at the type and looking at the fashion. So look at the clothing fashions or even the hair fashions. Look at the poses and see what type of pose that they might be holding. Does that give you any extra clues as well? And then turn to your family tree, guys, and see if you have anybody in that tree that matches what you have discovered in that photograph. Now, I continue to work through my photographs. I'll be honest, guys, I love sitting down and just kind of spreading them out and going through them and finding those family resemblances and seeing what I can learn there. I just think it's a lot of fun. And I desperately want to have a number of photographs I still want to identify, because if I don't, then there's just one more generation that will go not knowing who they are. So I'm working through this process on a number of my photographs, having some good results, having some so-so results on others, but still trying to get through them all. All right, guys, we are going to wrap this up shortly. So if you have questions or comments, go ahead and pop them over there in the comment section. If you think of something later that you want to ask, or if you want to share a photograph, absolutely pop it in the comments, and we can all enjoy seeing who it is. Or if you have a good story of how you identified a photograph, we'd love to hear it. Drop that in the comments too. I think we learn by talking with each other, and we learn by hearing what other people have experienced in their search for identifying those family photographs. So go ahead and pop those in there if you think of those, or come back later. I will absolutely be monitoring these and put them in. If you are watching on YouTube, feel free to put them in the comments there too, and share it there as well. So that said, for those of you watching on Facebook, this will be replayed on YouTube. So if you want to see it again, if you want to share it, absolutely share it from YouTube. You can absolutely share it from Facebook as well. In fact, I would ask that you do that if you find it helpful. I'd love for you to share it with other folks so that they can see it as well. with that, feel free to hop back over to the blog post at any point and check out those blog posts. I will put the links. Actually, let me put the link to that other one about the types of photographs into the, let me snag that real quick, into the comments for you guys, so you'll have that for easy reference there. So let me put that in there for you. There we go. Okay, that should be popping up there for you there in a minute. And if there's no other comments or anything, I'm going to let you guys go, and I will talk with you. Actually, there is no Facebook Live next week because it is July 4th week. So in fact, it will be July 4th, actually. So I want you guys to be out enjoying your families and get-togethers there. And then we will resume the following week. So enjoy. And enjoy having your photographs. Delve back into those. Share what you find. We'd love to hear it. And I will talk to you in 2 weeks from now. Oh, you're welcome, Jen. Thank you so much for coming, guys. I really appreciate that. That you took a little bit of time out and spent it with me this afternoon. So enjoy, guys.